anytime we're talking about good instruction, regardless of the subject area, we know that it's most effective to use explicit instruction with our students. So that applies in writing as well. And as we work through quoting and paraphrasing and summarizing, we want to make sure and follow an explicit instruction format. So we're going to do it with these different steps. We want to start out by defining what that element or strategy is. Clearly define what it is and what it's not. Because if our students can tell us what it's not, they have a deeper understanding of what it is. We also want to practice things orally. We know that if we can talk about it, we can write it down. So we want to give kids opportunities to visit and to engage in conversation about the things that ultimately we want them to put in writing. Another thing we want to be sure to do is to practice recognizing that element in print. What does a good paraphrase look like? What does a bad paraphrase look like? What does a good summary look like, and what does a poor summary look like? We want kids to have that frame of reference so that when they go back to edit their work, they have some idea of what a good paraphrase or summary should look like so that they know where theirs stands in comparison. Finally, we want to make sure and write using that element or strategy. The writing part comes pretty easy to us, kind of like reading comprehension. We as teachers are excellent at assigning it. We're not always good at teaching all of the moving parts. So hopefully today we're going to give you just a little bit different way to look at that and how to teach those moving parts. And those last 3 bullets, practicing orally, practicing recognizing the element, and writing using that element, those are things that we want to follow in I do, we do, you do format. We want to start with a teacher model, then do it as a group conversation and some guided lessons and guided activity before we release them to do it on their own. Because we know that practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And we want to make sure that our kids are practicing things correctly so that they are sure to do it correctly when they're on their own. So we want to do that I do, we do, you do format.
The next thing that you will see in your handout is a Frayer model. And a Frayer model is a good tool to use for vocabulary instruction. When we're thinking about the word quotation, a dictionary definition is to repeat words from a book, an author, etc. An example would be raising his small head high in the air, he bawled his challenge to the devil cat. That's coming from Where the Red Fern Grows. When we think about that quotation, what it is, it's copying text word for word. We include quotation marks so the reader knows that it is not my own words or ideas. And what it is not paraphrasing, and it is not summarizing. We need to make sure that we are explicitly teaching these words to our students. When I first started having my students include quotations in their writing, I gave them an assignment, and part of the assignment was to include a quotation. A little while into their writing, a student came up and asked me if he could use my book of quotations. And I said, well, of course, but what do you need the book of quotations for? And he said, well, duh, you told us we needed to put a quotation into our writing today. And so at that point, I realized that as a teacher, I had not explicitly taught exactly what a quotation was or the definition that I was using. They were thinking it was something like, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And I was thinking taking something directly from the text you had read and putting that into your writing today. One activity that we can do with students for including direct quotations into their writing is something called a peak paragraph. I used this with my students in my co-taught class who are on IEPs, as well as my students who were in that AP class. So this graphic organizer is there for you. The first one is the point. What is the main point of this paragraph? What do you want your reader to know? Number 2 is evidence. I'm going to find facts, quotations, statistics, other expert opinions. Number 3, I'm going to provide an explanation. And number 4 is a conclusion, providing that closing to my paragraph. Now, if you are a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade teacher watching this today and you're thinking, no way, oh my gosh, no way can my students do that, at the end we're going to talk about how this can be scaffolded for your grade levels. This is an example, again, from Where the Red Fern Grows, of what a completed peak paragraph would look like. First of all, we have our point. The point is that bravery is a characteristic that appears during times of crisis. The explanation that was provided is in blue there. In the story Where the Red Fern Grows, a boy and his 2 puppies are sleeping in a cave at nighttime when he hears the screams of a mountain lion. While the boy is frozen in fear, the male puppy springs to action to defend the boy and the other dog. He raised his small red head high in the air and bawled his challenge to the devil cat. That's where our direct quote comes in to support our explanation. And then we have our conclusion. This shows that the boy dog displayed courage in a dangerous situation. Even though he was smaller than the mountain lion, it didn't prevent him from defending others. In life, people can show bravery in many different ways by standing up to someone or something that's bigger than themselves. And so we're going to practice this. In your handout, you will find the lyrics to Garth Brooks' song, The Dance. Take a few minutes to read through those lyrics, and there's some space provided for you. I want you to write down what you feel the point to this song is. Now that you've had a minute to read through those lyrics and to think about what that might mean, watch the video. And Garth Brooks tells us what he thinks the point to the song is. So listen to that, look at who's in the video, and then we'll have some discussion after we finish watching this. Garth Brooks said that he believed the point to that song was that it was a song about life. So as you're looking at your graphic organizer, what I would do, especially the first few times that you're doing this, is provide the students with the point. And you may want to give them several different sentence starters that they can use. An example might be, the dance is a song about life. So now that I've given you what that point is, look back through the lyrics to find some evidence. Write down a few lines from those lyrics that support that statement that the dance is a song about life. After you've found some evidence, go ahead and provide some explanation and also provide some conclusion. Teachers always ask me if this needs to be in complete sentences. This is a complete teacher decision. If you want to use this as their brainstorming, it's just their graphic organizer, they're just jotting down their ideas, you can do that. If you want to have them have good sentence structure so they've got it practiced so that when they go to write that complete paragraph, it's all there for them, you can do that also. That is teacher judgment there. When we are talking about this direct quotation and how much we should actually use direct quotations, in a final paper, it should only be about 10% of your final paper. So if students are writing a 5-paragraph essay, I might tell them that they can use a direct quote one time. We don't want them overusing that direct quote, because otherwise what happens is the paper is not theirs. They are just recopying everything from that passage that they read. So one way to kind of curb students using too many direct quotations is if you have a graphic organizer such as the one that's on your screen now. I may tell them that the first explanation box can be a quotation, but the other two explanation boxes, 5 and 7, need to be your own explanation, or maybe one detail can be a direct quote. But give them those parameters, have them write it on that graphic organizer or write it on there before you photocopy it, so that they know that they need to include a direct quotation if that's what your purpose is, but they can only use one direct quotation. Another example would be this character map. I'm looking for 3 traits of this character. Maybe one evidence box of those 9 that are pictured there can be a direct quotation. So we want we want to teach them how to use direct quotations, but we also want to limit their use of them so that the ideas in their paper are their own.